Here's something that might explain a lot. If your plant has ever struggled, no matter how carefully you watered it, no matter how much sun it got, the real problem might not be anything you did wrong at all. It might be sitting right under your fingertips, in the soil you never thought twice about. Most beginners grab whatever bag says potting soil and assume dirt is dirt. It's not. And that one small assumption might quietly be working against everything else you've learned so far. Today I'm going to show you exactly what your plants are asking for underneath the surface, and I'm going to introduce you to a whole new set of natural feeding tricks we haven't covered yet, things sitting in your kitchen right now that you've probably never thought to use. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll look at your soil and honestly, your kitchen scraps completely differently. Hey, welcome to Green Harvest Hub, the channel where growing your own food stops feeling complicated and starts feeling like something you can actually do at home, no matter how much space or experience you have. If you're new here, hello, I'm glad you found us. Today we're going underground, literally, into the one thing that quietly decides whether every other lesson we've covered so far actually works the way it's supposed to. Quick favor before we dive in. If you're new here, tap subscribe because we're building a real, honest foundation for growing food at home, one overlooked detail at a time. And if you've ever repotted a plant and just grabbed whatever soil was cheapest at the store, drop a comment, because this video might explain a few things you've been wondering about. So today we're talking about soil, and I promise this is more interesting than it sounds. We're covering why regular bagged dirt often isn't enough on its own, what your roots are actually searching for beneath the surface, and a whole new list of natural, almost forgotten ways to feed your soil, ones we haven't touched on in any video before this. Everything today is new, so if you've been following along, this genuinely adds to what you already know instead of repeating it. Here's the truth most bagged soil labels don't tell you. Garden dirt, or cheap generic potting mixes, are often dense, compact, and low in nutrients, especially after a plant has lived in it a while. Roots need loose, airy soil to spread and breathe, and dense dirt compacts tightly inside containers, squeezing out the oxygen roots depend on to function properly. It's not that the soil is fake or bad exactly, it's that it was never built for the demands of a container, where roots can't spread out and search the way they would in open ground. Think of it like trying to breathe through a thick blanket instead of open air, technically possible, but exhausting and eventually damaging. Here's something that might genuinely surprise you. A single teaspoon of healthy soil can contain billions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, tiny organisms working together in a hidden ecosystem you'll never see with your own eyes. That soil isn't just holding your plant upright, it's alive, constantly breaking things down and feeding your plant in ways water alone never could. When soil is compacted or lifeless, that whole invisible support system quietly disappears, and your plant is left fending for itself, alone, without the help it was designed to rely on. Good potting soil should feel light and slightly crumbly, not dense or clay-like. It should hold moisture without staying soggy, and it should have visible texture, little bits of bark, perlite, or organic matter mixed in rather than one uniform, packed material. If you squeeze a handful and it holds together in a tight, muddy ball, that's a sign it's too dense. If it crumbles apart naturally in your hand, that's exactly what your roots are hoping for. Quick pause here. If you've ever wondered why your plant just wasn't thriving even though you were watering it perfectly, let me know in the comments, because soil is honestly the most overlooked answer, and almost nobody questions it early on. And if this is opening your eyes a little, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more beginners who are missing this exact piece. Subscribe too if you haven't yet, because we're building this channel into a real, honest foundation for growing food at home, one detail at a time. Now, let's get into the part I'm genuinely excited about, because these are all new, nothing repeated from anything we've talked about before. Start with potato peel water. Instead of throwing away potato peels, boil them in water for about 10 minutes, then let the water cool completely before straining it out and using it to water your plants. Potatoes are naturally rich in potassium and small amounts of phosphorus, both of which support strong root development and healthy flowering. Just make sure the water is fully cooled. Warm water poured directly onto roots can actually stress a plant rather than help it. Next, garlic water. Crush 2 or 3 garlic cloves and let them steep in a jar of water overnight. then strain and dilute before using it as a light soil drench. Garlic contains natural sulfur compounds that many gardeners believe help support a healthier root environment and may discourage certain soil-dwelling pests, all without a single harsh chemical involved. Then there's molasses water, and this one is honestly one of my favorites. Mix a small spoonful of unsulfured molasses into a liter of water and use it to water your soil every couple of weeks. Molasses is rich in natural sugars and trace minerals, and it acts almost like a feast for the beneficial microorganisms living in your soil, the same hidden ecosystem we talked about earlier. Feeding those microorganisms directly is one of the most overlooked ways to build long-term soil health. Aloe vera water is another wonderful, gentle option. If you have an aloe plant at home, or even just a small piece of gel from a fresh leaf, dilute a spoonful into a cup of water. Aloe naturally contains compounds that can encourage root development, which makes this particularly useful when you're starting new cuttings or transplanting a seedling into fresh soil. Wood ash, used very sparingly, just a light pinch worked into the top layer of soil, provides potassium and can slightly raise soil pH, which is helpful for vegetables like tomatoes and peppers that don't love overly acidic conditions. The key word here is sparingly. Too much wood ash can throw things off balance quickly, so a little truly goes a long way. And finally, yeast water. Dissolve a small pinch of active dry yeast in warm water with a touch of sugar. Let it sit for about an hour until it becomes slightly frothy, then dilute it further before pouring it around your plant's base. The fermentation process encourages beneficial microbial activity in the soil, similar to what happens naturally in rich, healthy compost, except you're giving your soil a gentle nudge in that direction using something that's probably sitting in your pantry right now. None of these require a trip to a garden store. None of them cost more than a few cents. They simply require a slightly different way of looking at what's already sitting in your kitchen. Here's something worth sitting with for a moment. So much of what we eat today has been engineered for shelf life and appearance, genetically modified, sprayed, shipped across the world long before it ever reaches your plate. Somewhere along the way, food stopped feeling like something we grow and started feeling like something we simply acquire, wrapped in plastic, stripped of any real story. And in the middle of all that, there's something quietly rebellious about choosing to feed your soil with garlic water and potato peels instead of chemicals, about knowing exactly what touched the vegetable on your plate because you grew it with your own two hands. It's not just gardening. It's a small, deliberate act of reconnecting with something we've drifted very far away from without even noticing it happening. Here's something that might genuinely stay with you. Healthy, fertile soil can take decades, sometimes centuries, to form naturally, built slowly through decomposing leaves, tiny organisms, and quiet processes happening completely out of sight. And yet we so often overlook it entirely, focused only on the parts of a plant we can actually see growing above the surface. Maybe that's true in more places than just gardening. The most important work is usually the part nobody's watching, happening slowly, quietly, underneath everything else, holding it all up without ever asking for credit. A quick word on rhythm, because more isn't always better. Rotate gently between these boosters rather than using all of them at once. Your soil doesn't need to be overwhelmed with nutrients. It needs consistent, varied, gentle support. Potato peel water or molasses water every couple of weeks. Garlic water occasionally if you notice any pest activity near the soil. Aloe water specifically when transplanting or rooting cuttings. And wood ash only once in a great while, sparingly. Think of it less like a strict schedule and more like simply paying attention, the same quiet rhythm we talked about with checking your plants every 2 to 3 days. If your current soil feels dense, mix in a handful of perlite or coarse sand to loosen it up and improve drainage. Add a spoonful of compost worked into the top layer to reintroduce some living nutrient activity. Then rotate gently between your new natural boosters, potato peel water, garlic water, molasses water, aloe vera water, giving your soil a variety of gentle nutrients rather than relying on just one single trick. And when repotting, look for mixes labeled specifically for containers or vegetables. They're formulated to stay loose over time instead of compacting the way garden soil naturally does. So, let's bring this together. Regular bagged dirt or garden soil often isn't enough on its own for container plants because it compacts and loses the airy structure roots need to breathe. Good soil should feel light, crumbly, and slightly textured, never dense or muddy. And you can build genuinely healthy soil using brand new natural boosters we haven't covered before: potato peel water for potassium, garlic water for root health, molasses water to feed soil microorganisms, aloe vera water to encourage rooting, and a careful pinch of wood ash for potassium and balanced pH. Get the soil right, and suddenly everything else you've learned so far, watering, feeding, pruning, actually works the way it's supposed to. If this changed how you think about what's sitting in your pots, subscribe, because we're building a full, honest foundation for growing food at home, one overlooked detail at a time. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever tried potato peel water or garlic water before? Which one are you most curious to try? I read every single one. And if you've got plants growing right now, go check the soil today, see if it crumbles or clumps in your hand. I'll see you in the next one.